Good evening, everyone. My name is Ketaki Verma. I'm the head of public programs at the Museum of Art and Photography in Bangalore. Thank you all for joining us today. This is the fifth edition of our ongoing series, A Closer Look, featuring an illustrated lecture by Sonya Rhie Mace, who's the George P. Bickford Curator of Indian and Southeast Asian Art at the Cleveland Museum of Art. Her recent exhibition, Epic of the Northwest Himalayas, Pahari Paintings from the Shangri Ramayan, is currently on display. It's about to close very soon. The exhibition brings together paintings from the widely dispersed Shangri Ramayan, a monumental Pahari pictorial series created around 1700 that narrates the story of the Hindu divine hero Ram. In this talk, Dr. Mace will present research based on previously unpublished paintings that reshapes our understanding of this series. Her findings reveal a far greater number of folios and artistic styles than previously recognized, suggesting that the manuscript was created through a collaborative network of artists working across the Pahari region, spanning present-day Himachal Pradesh and Jammu and Kashmir. She will also trace how this once unified manuscript became dispersed across collections over time, and how new discoveries are helping to reconstruct both its visual narrative and the artistic networks behind its creation. Dr. Mace will speak for about 30 minutes, and we'll follow this with questions from the audience. So please feel free to keep dropping your questions into the Q&A box throughout the session. You can also find more details about Dr. Mace in the chat box. We'll put that in. I also want to acknowledge Saurabh and Pallavi from the Association of Sign Language Interpreters, ASLI India, for providing ISL interpretation this evening. And thank you all once again for joining us. Dr. Mace, over to you.
Thank you. It's such an honor and a pleasure to join you. I think I see some familiar names and faces there at MAP. It's wonderful that CMA and MAP have an ongoing partnership starting this year. So I'm grateful for the opportunity also to share with MAP's audiences the project that we're working on at CMA pertaining to Pahari paintings. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Yes, and thank you so much, Ketaki, for organizing everything so beautifully. So this is a view of one of the two entrances coming into our Julia and Larry Pollock Focus Gallery. And we
sorry, Dr. Mace,
Yes.
we can't see your screen.
Okay, let me try again. Just a moment. Yes.
No problem.
How about now?
Perfect. Yes. If you can make that full screen, then we'll be able to see it clearly.
There we go.
Perfect.
All right. So
Thank
now
you.
you see one of the two entrances leading into the Julia and Larry Pollock Focus Gallery. And the main scene that you see as you walk in is the image from the Shangri Ramayana that's on the cover of an accompanying catalog, because it is the moment that Vishwamitra is first giving teachings to Ram and Lakshman when they're age 15 and beginning their education to become superhuman. And there's a second entrance around the corner where we see the monkeys and Jambavan entering a forest on their search for Sita. So the previous image was from the Balakanda, the first chapter of Valmiki's Ramayana. And then this one is from the fourth chapter. So people will realize they need to take heart, just like the monkeys did as they enter this great forest of the Ramayana itself. On the wall there at the far end of the space, you see basically our introductory panels, where it gives a sense of the terrain and the location of Pahari, India. The fact that this mountainous region consists of several different mountain ranges that are pushed together. And so they drop to steep valleys that are transected and transversed by major rivers and running streams produced by glacial melt from the high Himalayas. And so the resulting valleys that are very fertile that crisscross this region are the area that are known as Pahari. And also the people of this area are distinguished by a shared language written in the script known as Takri. So there's a great deal of mobility among the different kingdoms of the Northwest Himalayas, but less interaction with the plains of the Punjab and the territories of the high Himalayas, although there certainly was regular interconnectivity. So as we enter into the exhibition, I thought it would be good to put a quote from Valmiki's Ramayana that gives some sense of why somebody might commission a large-scale Ramayana epic. And this Ramayana, as I note in the introduction of the exhibition, may well have had between 700 and 1,000 fully painted folios without any text. So it's a pictorial presentation of the epic rather than an illustrated manuscript. The quote that I pulled out from the very beginning of book one, in chapter one, is whoever reads this history of Ram, which is purifying, destructive of sin, holy, and the equal of the most sacred scripture, is freed from all sin. So this is a way that Valmiki in the Ramayana self-proclaims as being able to wipe clean one's sins. A good reason to commission a Ramayana. So this focus gallery, which typically only has a few objects in it, actually suits quite well the hanging of 40 paintings from the Shangri Ramayana. It is, but we were able to divide the space into 4 different sections, each with a different wall color that underscores the mood of each section. So these are the sort of golden years, including the preamble and the childhood, so the early sections of the Ramayana. So the exhibition moves in strict linear order, in narrative order. And one thing that our designers agreed to was to put a narrative rail along the middle of the gallery with labels here that are written at a 5th grade reading level. So a reading level that is supposed to be accessible to children about the age of 10. And it gives only in very simple language a summary of the content of the painting above. And then in the main labels next to each painting is a full identification as well as 2-paragraph art historical discussion about the content of the painting. So we have 2 levels of labels, didactics. The first painting that we come to, I thought it was wonderful that we could borrow a painting from the Los Angeles County Museum of Art that depicts the Valmiki Ramayana's composer, Valmiki himself. And so you can see that he's a sage, a rishi, who lives out in the forest in an ashram. And he's pointing to his mouth, indicating that he's to be reciting the Ramayana in a meter. And he's explaining to his pupil that he's decided upon which meter to use as he tells the story of Rama and Sita. Now, Valmiki is the lead ascetic or holy man in the ashram where Sita lived at the end of her life for 12 years and raised her twin sons, Lava and Kusha. And it is, after all, a story of heartbreak. He decided on the meter that is based on, the cries of a crane who just witnessed the mate be killed by a hunter with an arrow, and the anguished cry of despair is the basis for the meter of the Ramayana. Another painting that has actually long been in the collection of the Cleveland Museum of Art is one that takes place before even the birth of Ram. So it's part of this preamble section where it tells the story of the sage Rishi Shringa. Now, it's interesting for this project, we're bringing together 40 paintings from the Shangri Ramayana from about 12 different sources, which were the number that we could fit within our museum's exhibition budget for this space. And so it was a challenge to find the exact paintings that would move the story along. But CMA already had a number of, or 2 actually, paintings from the Shangri Ramayana in its collection. And so we, of course, had to show them, even if they weren't necessarily central to the action of the story of the Ramayana itself. Now, this is a scene that we had misidentified in terms of subject matter for many decades. because it was completely out of context. But in this project, where I'm pulling together as many Shangri Ramayana pages as possible, we're able to discover that this is actually Rishishringa. It's more difficult to identify because this painting is actually unfinished. The areas where we see just flat yellow paint would be places where the artist should have applied gold. But the gold being the final step in the process, it has not been applied. And so it's as though, even though this is at the very beginning of the Ramayana, it remains unfinished. But if had it been finished, we would have seen a golden horn emerging from the apex of Rishishringa's head. And then we would have known very clearly this is the miraculous sage who in this painting is seeing women for the first time in his entire life, and they entice him back to their kingdom, which had been suffering from a drought. And with his arrival, the rains start to come. So then we move to the next section called Childhood. Now, the sections are not specifically, in the exhibition, are not specifically accorded to the chapter designations of the Ramayana itself, but instead more towards a general mood or feeling of the content of the paintings hanging in the exhibition. So the next painting shows the celebrations on the 12th day naming ceremony of the 4 sons of Dashratha. Now, Dashratha had heard about the miracle of the sage Rishishringa who brought the rains to another kingdom, and he invited that same sage Rishishringa to come to his kingdom to sponsor a sacrifice so that his 3 wives could bear sons. He had 3 wives, but no children for a long time. So it was with Rishishringa that he sponsored a sacrifice that was successful, accepted by the gods. And it was during that sacrifice where the gods are eating a fabulous meal that they complain that so rarely do they get a good meal like this because the demon Ravana has become so powerful thanks to a boon from Brahma that promises he will not be conquered by either demon or a god. That he's been so powerful, he'd been sending his minions and other demons to defile the holy man's sacrifices in the forest. And so Vishnu, as the god who sees to the order and balance in the world, said, well, how can we help? And Brahma says, well, Ravana, the demon, did not ask for the boon that he could not be killed by a human being. So Vishnu agrees to incarnate as a human being, and at the end of the Rishishringa sacrifice, Dashratha sees a great being emerge with a plate full of rice pudding, celestial kheer, and he divides it among his 4 wives, with half of the portion going to Kaushalya, who gives birth to baby Rama, here shown as blue. In another painting, these are all in different collections, this now in Seattle, Washington, a sage Vishvamitra comes to the court of Dashratha when the boys have turned 15 and Dashratha is considering the marriage of his sons. There's still a celebratory mood in this scene. And here is where Dashratha complains that still the sages in the forest are being plagued by demons who are ruining their sacrifices, so that he should send his sons to learn how to slay these demons and help the sages of the forest in his land. The painting that we saw at the entrance to the exhibition here shows the 2 boys with Vishvamitra about to enter the forest on their first adventure. They follow along the banks of the Sarayu River, and this is the moment where Vishvamitra gives his first teachings that will protect Rama and Lakshmana from never getting tired, never getting sick, being the strongest men in the world, and never being defeated by demons, and always being good looking. So next to this, we have the first of 3 animations that show 16 to 45 paintings in sequence, including digital images of paintings that are not actually physically in the exhibition, but still in many other collections, so that including all of the paintings in the animations, visitors can see up to about 120 paintings So you have the experience of really a full-scale, large-scale major exhibition. It also gives these animations, which I don't have time to share with you today, but I can send links if anyone is interested. They give a sense of the sequential unfolding of the action. Whereas in the actual paintings, we're really only able to show highlights of the whole scene, of the whole epic story. So the next painting after the animation is where Rama, after having slayed the demons that were defiling the sages' sacrifices, comes with Vishwamitra and his brother Lakshmana to the court of Janaka in Mithila, where he proves that he is the only one worthy to marry Sita because he is capable of not only bending and stringing, but breaking the bow of Shiva. Sita is here looking on. The next painting on view is the celebratory wedding procession from a collection in Zurich, where they are making their way back to Ayodhya. These are the four princes. Rama and Lakshmana have married the Sita and her sister, and then his other two brothers, Bharat and Shatrughna, have married Sita's cousins. Dasharatha is here riding the chariot along with his royal sages. Then we turn the corner. We painted this section red because something quite arresting is about to happen. So we turn the corner in to give this different mood in another space. This section is called The Promise, and here is where we take up the story of the Ramayana 2 years after the wedding, where Dasharatha has decided he's ready to retire, and the boys have turned 17. And here, again, it's another painting that was in the collection of the Cleveland Museum of Art for a long time, but we did not know the identification of the scene until we were able to put many pages, more than 600 pages, in sequential order with using digital images. Here he's telling his third and favorite wife, Kaikeyi, that perhaps her son and his favorite brother, Bharata and Shatrughna, should go to visit their uncle with her brother. After the boys have left, then Rama, he is told, and it's made public, that he will be the next successor. So in this painting, that also is unfinished. So we see the borders are not done. Rama here is saying a prayer under the instructions of the court priest, along with Sita behind him, getting ready to purify himself for an investiture ceremony. The door guardian is feeling relaxed. There are musicians that are singing triumphant songs, and the cows as well are feeling confident and happy. Now you'll notice that I think already just in the paintings that we've looked at, quite a number of styles are represented, and they are indicative of multiple workshops that contributed to this large-scale series. The next painting in the exhibition, probably made at the same workshop as the previous one, shows Kaikeyi in her chamber of anger, where she is telling Dasharatha that he promised her a wish, and that she now wishes to have him grant that wish, and that wish is that her son Bharata, instead of Rama, become the next king and successor of Ayodhya, and that Ram be banished to the forest for 14 years, such that so that Bharata can establish his reign. Dasharatha here, his hair turns white, he faints and begs her to change her mind. The musicians have become confused. The door guardian is standing now at attention and telling them that something is going on and they need to stop playing their music. Yet another workshop produced the next series of paintings where Rama has agreed to, of course, uphold his father's word and promise to Kaikeyi. And here he is informing his mother that he'll be going into the forest in exile for 14 years. His brother Lakshmana behind him will accompany him. His mother, of course, is desperately upset. This artist, who is such a master with trees and vegetation, is setting the next scene with 3 clusters of trees where Rama is giving away his gifts to the Brahmins, to his friends, to his servants, of things that he will not need while living in the forest. So he's giving away these fine muslins, just like the one worn on this upper garment worn by the Brahmins. Gold is being given away, fine textiles and clothes, as well as cows and their calves. Then we turn the corner again to begin the years in exile. And on this back wall, we have 3 examples from the Aranyakanda, where they've entered the forest and are going from ashram to ashram in search of a place to settle for their period of exile. So I chose 3 paintings of 3 different ashrams that move them deeper and deeper into the forest. The first one is the first ashram where they stop with the sage Bharadvaja, and then they continue further. This one is the ashram of the sage Atri, where Sita learns from the wife of Atri how to live as a woman in the forest all alone. So what kinds of fruits and roots and are good to forage in the forest, and just how to survive. This is the last ashram that they reach, where the sage Agastya will tell them to go to Panchavati, which would be a safe and peaceful place to live. Some of these paintings have continuous narration. So this acolyte, who is meeting Lakshmana at the gateway of the most peaceful ashram, where even buffalo and tiger will drink together from the same pond, he then goes and tells the sage Agastya that Rama is about to come, and the sage Agastya is happy to welcome him. So there are 2 separate sequential moments in time in this one page, and here is just a scene from the ashram where another senior holy man is testing an acolyte on his recitations, probably from a scripture. This is a manuscript he's holding. Now you'll notice that the paintings in this grouping have inscriptions in the borders. They're in Mandiyali Takri, suggesting that this group was painted in a place where Mandiyali was written and spoken, or Mandiyali was spoken, and also the style can be connected with other paintings made in the kingdom of Mandi. So we've just come to the end of this wall, and then we turn the corner, still in the section of exile, to show the Shobhanaka sequence, which has been heavily emphasized in this particular Ramayana. Shobhanaka is not shown in her beautiful disguise as a beautiful, seductive woman. She's shown in her true form throughout this sequence, where she lunges to devour Sita in order to get her out of the way, so that Ram will become her lover, she hopes. And so Lakshmana then jumps up to defend Sita, but not wishing to kill her, because her nature as a Rakshasa just is to be lustful. It's not her fault. But Sita must be defended. So here he's shown in the act of cutting off her ears and the tip of her nose. Nevertheless, she's furious, and she goes to meet the donkey-headed King Kara, who is her brother, and the chief of the forest Rakshasas. Already he had sent a group to go and defeat Rama and Lakshmana, but they failed. And so she here is taunting him, saying that, what, are you afraid to go alone? And so he agrees to go, but as he goes with his army, all the evil omens appear, such as a solar eclipse, clouds out of season raining blood, a jackal belching fire, and a vulture that lands on the standard of his chariot. Nevertheless, they carry on and they meet up with Ram, who tells Lakshmana to take Sita to a safe place, that he can handle this entire demon horde on his own. And then we have a whole sequence of about 38 battle scenes, much like this one, where we see confrontation after confrontation, and Rama is able to slay all the demons who don't flee. So this is the painting we just looked at. We come to the end of the red section, and then I interrupt it with a golden pilaster. because on this bumped out section of the wall is the painting that's in the Cleveland Museum of Art that is actually the center of this focus gallery exhibition. The focus gallery is supposed to place in context one specific painting from the museum's collection. And this is it. It's where Shortnaka demands vengeance now from Ravana. And I feel that it is potentially one of the most climactic paintings in the entire series. It comes quite in the middle of book 3. And I believe that for the Shangri Ramayana, only 6 of the 7 books were completed or intended to be completed. And here, Shurpanakha is pointing at Ravana, and there's more gold on this single page than any other folio that I've seen from the series. And Ravana is shown here in the Shangri Ramayana for the first time. So it really is this kind of operatic introduction of the arch villain in Lanka. So Shurpanakha convinces Ravana to take vengeance by abducting Sita, whom she says is extremely beautiful, and he then and his shapeshifter friend, the demon Maricha, devise a plan to abduct her, and the next section explains the abduction, including one of the animation series that places the last 3 paintings into sequential context. This painting is one that the Cleveland Museum recently acquired for the exhibition, and it's the only one out of India with an image of the golden deer that is the form into which Maricha takes to lure Ram deep into the forest. This golden deer is the demon Maricha in disguise, and when Sita sees it, she asks Rama to capture it for her. It leads Rama deep into the forest. He slays it, but before the demon dies, he calls out for help, and Sita sends Lakshmana to go and help Rama. And then, left alone, Ravana is able to grab her and bring her back to Lanka. In the animation sequence, visitors can see the whole altercation with Jatayu and how Ravana is able to defeat him. As Ravana is flying with Sita through the air, she's dropping her jewelry in order to leave a trail of which direction she's gone. And the gods and the rishis with hair bristling point to this horrible situation, saying that what must be done has been done. So you then turn the corner again, and now this section, as you can see, is a kind of forest green, because in the forest, the Rama and Lakshmana have to search for Sita, unable to find her. So they're kind of in this the darkness of anxiety and uncertainty. In this fabulous painting, it seems like Rama and Lakshmana are trapped in the mountains, and they came back to the hut, couldn't find her, have no idea what happened to Sita, and they're getting more and more and more anxious. They are worried and afraid, and Ram starts to twist his feet, and he wants to blow up the world, and Lakshmana prays to him that he calm down, and they continue searching in the many caves of the region. As they search, the great monkeys who inhabit the area see them and wonder, what are these warriors doing here? And so they rush off to go and tell their king Sugriva of these 2 warriors who have come. So Hanuman brings the 2 warriors, the 2 brothers, Rama and Lakshmana, to meet Sugriva. And here is where we show 2 paintings in sequence that were made at the same workshop, probably by different artist hands, but in order to show the slow pace of how fully completed, now these have all the gold and everything, fully completed paintings show just one moment to the next. So when Rama and Sugriva meet one another, they come to an agreement that if Rama kills Sugriva's brother Vali, who sits on the throne of the kingdom, that Sugriva will then help Rama find Sita. So the idea was that Sugriva would call Vali out, they would get in a fight, and Rama would shoot Vali. Now, this happened, but Rama never shot Vali. And so Sugriva said, why not? And he said, well, the two of you look exactly alike. When you're fighting, I couldn't tell the difference between you two. So let's do it again, but this time wear a flower garland, and I'll know not to shoot the monkey with wearing the flower garland. So in this painting, Lakshmana is plucking flowers, keeping them in his shawl. And then in the next painting that we don't have on view, but it's in a private collection, it just shows him stringing the garland. And then in the next painting, he's placing the garland over Sugriva's head. So this is the kind of pace. It's a very slow, devotional, meditative pace from one painting to the next. This is something that we miss out on when we see just one individual painting at a time. So this time, Rama successfully shoots Vali, and this is probably one of the most morally or ethically problematic moments in the Ramayana. Like, what kind of hero will kill the rightful king for his own aims, for his own purposes? And so the whoever commissioned the Shangri Ramayana or made the Shangri Ramayana decided to instead actually lean into this problematic moment. And there are 52 paintings depicting dying Vali, from the moment that Rama shoots him to the moment that he's placed on the funeral pyre, showing that really this is something that was of interest to the patron of this Ramayana. So these are the paintings we just looked at with the death of Vali here. And then there are 4 paintings that show the work of the artists from the same workshop, where after Sugriva has gained the throne, he sends groups of monkeys to the 4 directions. This group heads south into a cursed forest where not even wild animals will live, but there is a demon who attacks them. Angada slays him, but now they didn't take the time to ask the demon where he would have hidden Sita if he were the one who did so. And so they just continue their fevered search for her in caves, behind trees, and they start to become exhausted. And the artist shows the monkeys as though they are being swallowed by the very forest itself. But across the way, this group of birds seems to suggest that there will be hope. And of course, Sampati then comes to them in their moment of despair, where they're contemplating suicide, to tell them that he heard from the dying Jatayu that Ravana had taken Sita to Lanka. That is when Hanuman, as we turn the corner to the rescue, this final scene that's blue, he agrees to cross the ocean since he's the son of the god of the wind and has that power to make himself tiny and search the island of Lanka. And here is where he discovers Sita imprisoned and abused in the Ashoka Grove. He goes to tell Rama and Lakshmana that he's found her. And when they come to rescue her, Indrajit, the son of Ravana, who knows magic, is able to make himself invisible and rain enchanted arrows from the sky that cause Rama and Lakshmana to become paralyzed. And as they do so, the monkeys watch over them. Sita, in the next animated sequence, is shown Ram and Lakshmana as though they're dead, but one of her guards says, "Oh, they're not dead, they're just enchanted." So she sits in steadfast hope here. This painting especially reminds us of the Rasamantri of Devidasa, and from the Basoli area by Nurpur artists. So some sequences of paintings we can clearly associate with Mandi, and others in the south of the Pahari region, others with workshops in the north. As we continue the story, there are, I think, 42 paintings associated with the monkeys standing around trying to figure out what to do. And as they just try all different solutions and none of them work, finally there's this Deus ex machina, and Garuda is able to save the day. The next sequence, and to send the serpents away. The next sequence shows Hanuman and the monkeys battling against one of Ravana's generals. And then another general comes forward after Akampana has been defeated. And there are 15 or 16 different waves of battles, each one given multiple scenes of just gore and violence. And then we run out of paintings, and we don't have any more from the Shangri Ramayana after after I think the third or fourth battle scene against Ravana's generals and ministers. So in the exhibition, we have a wallpaper with panels at the end that explain why we are missing folios of multiple scenes of the Shangri Ramayana itself, and then telling the end of the story. So, I mean, in my opinion, the paintings were completed for the Shangri Ramayana, since there are so many different groups that had been given and assigned to different workshops. And there are important scenes that intervene between paintings we have found that are missing, such as Hanuman bringing antidotes from the mountains, and the battles with Kumbhakarna, Sita's trial by fire, even the final slaying of Ravana by Ram. So, given the fact that the Shangri Ramayana artists spent so many paintings on just multiple scenes in a slow pace to unfold the epic, I expect that the scenes that are missing just either have been destroyed, or they're lost, or have yet to be found. We also have a wall dedicated to a kind of dramatis personae, so that as our visitors come to the gallery, if they get lost in the names, they can always come to this central wall that shows an illustrated chart with the names of each of the main characters that appear in the paintings that are on view, with a short explanation of who they are. Yep, and here's an overview of the whole gallery, where you can see the multiple colors and the multiple sections. There are also some panels, one that gives an acknowledgement saying that this is actually a collaborative project with the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art and the Cincinnati Art Museum, where all three museums have paintings from the Catherine Glynn Benkheim and Ralph Benkheim collection of Pahari paintings. And the occasion for these exhibitions was the publication of the Benkheim collection catalog of Pahari paintings. And each museum mounted a special exhibition to celebrate the publication of the catalog. And each curator at each museum approached Pahari paintings in a different way. In Washington, it was more chronological in scope, with an emphasis on the shifting and evolving aesthetics of Pahari painting. In Cincinnati, it had more to do with the emotional reception of the paintings. So it was called Longing, with sections associated with longing for God, longing for power, and longing for love. And then at the Cleveland Museum of Art, I chose to emphasize storytelling in this unique form of pictorial storytelling that we see in the Shangri Ramayana. Now, this placard here points visitors to our library, where we have a special display of artist books by a contemporary artist by the name of Yogananthan, and he made 7 books of the Ramayana based on his photographs and manipulated photographs of places in India where the Ramayana was to have taken place, just with images of people going about their daily lives, but placed in the context of his own vision of the Ramayana. So it points us to that companion exhibition. And there's another companion exhibition upstairs in our permanent collection rotation gallery, with highlights from the Benkheim collection that show more of an introduction to Pahari painting as a whole, and art of Pahari India, including Pahari Rumal, the embroidered textiles, and romances, portraits, ragamalas, and large-scale historical pattas. Okay, So I think I've come to the end of my time. I think I've even gone over time a little bit. So I'm happy to then take questions or have any discussion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mace. That was incredible, very, very enlightening. And I'm so glad we had an opportunity to see some of these works, even if just online. I think you can, yeah, perfect. That's great. Um, I will now go over some of the questions. There are a few in the Q&A box. I'm not sure if you can hear some sound behind me. I apologize for that. So somebody has asked, have you ever gotten a sense of how many artist workshops were involved in the making of this manuscript, going by the many styles? And I think connected to that, I also had this question about this idea of artist workshops, and perhaps you could talk a little bit about the relationship between the individual artists, the workshops, and the patrons as well, specifically within this Pahari context. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have to say that a lot of the work of this exhibition is could not have been possible without the doctoral dissertation of Dr. Alka Bagri. She wrote her PhD thesis for University of Oxford in the UK on the Shangri Ramayana in 2010. And so she identified 10 different styles, but she identified them as 10 different artists. I would kind of build upon that because I was fortunate to have access to about 250 more paintings than Alka was able to see in 2010. And so basically, she's found 10 different styles. I think at least there should be two or three more. It's a little bit hard to parse out specific workshop styles, but we can identify, I think, 12 or 13 separate completely separate styles, so completely separate approaches to figural proportion, relationships between figures and architecture, and palette, even so, even the use of different pigments. So, and their styles range across the entire Pahari region. So it seems as though maybe let's say 12 to 15 different workshops contributed to the completion of this very large scale project so that it could be completed as it appears by a deadline, by a certain time. And since some of the different styles show varying levels of finish, so some of them, some certain styles or certain workshops, when they, I guess, turned in their paintings, they did all of the burnishing, added all the borders, and put in all of the silver and gold and did the tooling. And then there's some that didn't have the borders completed and no gold, and the burnishing is less. So there's this range of finish according to workshop style. Now, each workshop would have had multiple artists working there, could be as many as 20 or 30 artists. And in the Pahari area, it seems like the workshops were located in ancestral artists' enclaves, artists that belong to a certain caste, and a lot of them call themselves in the genealogies that they're Tarkan Chiteras. So they're carpenter, painters, and the kind of work that they would do is usually like two-dimensional visual productions. So before court painting became popular in the Pahari region or in the courts, starting in the 1620s, these artisans were working in metal, let's say doing repoussé or metal engraving, or they would make murals on walls in friezes, or they would be making like wood carvings on wooden panels, or in even doing textile weaving. So multiple media in two dimensions. So then they took on doing painting on paper when this became popular, starting in the 1620s and increasing in popularity through the 18th century. Now, so then in terms of the relationship with patrons, there could be multiple ways. So it doesn't seem like any workshops per se were specifically connected with a royal court in the Pahari area. So this is different from the Mughal model, for instance, or even many of the court ateliers in Rajasthan. Instead, usually either, okay, so if artists were seeking work, they would take a portfolio of samples and go from court to court throughout the Pahari area, asking members of the nobility if they would like to have a portrait painted or a ragamala or something, or, so they would offer work and then they could stay there and finish the work and then leave it. So so artists could reside temporarily in royal courts, as we know in the case of Nainsuk, where he stayed in a court in different courts throughout his career. And then there were other cases where there would be a royal patron who wanted to commission a work, either a Ragamala or a Bhagavata Purana or a Ramayana, and they could ask they would uh, assign the work to different workshops, or to one workshop or one artist, but they would be initiated from the royal patron. And very often, when it came to sacred texts, such as a Bhagavata Purana or a Ramayana, it would be under the advice of a Purohit. So the royal priest would suggest to the king that, okay, you have a special ceremony coming up, you need to get spiritual or religious merit by that time, or there's going to be a consecration of a temple on this auspicious date. So you must have this manuscript or this painting series completed by the certain time. So you should give the money so that enough artists can contribute and complete this Bhagavad Puran. So those seem to be the ways that the relationships took place. But very often, we know this actually, Vijay Sharma and Sarang Sharma spent a couple of weeks going through the bahis, or the genealogical registers, with the pandas at Haridwar, Kova, and Kurakshetra in order to get as much primary source information as possible about the families of artists who are listed at the back of every bahi. And each bahi is associated with a different kingdom. So B.N. Goswami did revolutionary work in this regard when it came to Guler, but there are actually hundreds of other artists with very similar situations. We just don't have necessarily very many paintings that we can connect with the names of all of these thousands of artists that list their names in the bahis. But what they do list in the bahis is the fact that they are from a certain village that in a certain kingdom, such as Nurpur. But they will then say that their employer is elsewhere, like in Chamba, for instance, or they're from Kangra, but they're working in Mandi, and then we see that there is a great deal of fluidity when it comes to the mobility of artists. And there's also a great deal of intermarriage, so that a woman from Guler could, in an artist family, could marry into a Nurpur workshop and then bring paintings with those styles to another workshop, and you'll see changes in these workshop styles after those intermarriages. I hope that's clear.
That's great. Yeah. Somebody's actually mentioned Manaku of Guler here as well. They've asked whether, in case this was painted after Manaku of Guler, were there any influences of his on this? If you would like to respond to that.
It seems like these paintings were painted before the time of Manaku.
Okay.
And yes, so these
Mhm.
paintings were done probably around 1700 because of quite a number of associations with series. Because there's so few series that are actually dated, but the Rasamantri series dated to 1694 to 1695, and so that
Right.
seems to be more of the time period.
There's also a question on aesthetics, a few of them. So somebody has asked, is there a reason why these Pahari paintings feature mostly solid colored backgrounds instead of scenic ones? Is this canonical for Pahari Ramayana paintings, or are they simply unfinished? Someone else has also asked about the script along the borders of a few images. Have you translated them? Can you talk a little bit about them? And also the pigments that were used. So somebody has said they see a bright yellow background in many temples and so on. So if you could talk a little bit about the aesthetics.
Yes, so the flat background color is related to the time period at which this was made. Most all Pahari paintings from the late 17th century are going to have that very flat backgrounds with rich color. And yes, and there, this is why also we can kind of say that even the end of the series, there still isn't any interest in placing the figures within a landscape with depth perspective. So it doesn't seem like even like at the end of the book they are later additions. This flat background color is part of, I think, the local artists' ancestral work in two dimensions, and so where they're accustomed, let's say, on a sheet of metal or a sheet of gold, to show different characters. They each have their own place on this two-dimensional sheet. And so they don't have this idea to give a receding background landscape. This is something that comes quite a bit later after the 1730s. So the colors, the takri in the margins, those inscriptions, they're only, well, there are different ones. So the ones that have the inscriptions all around the red border are in Mandyali Takri, and those are summaries of the content of the scene. And yes, they've all been translated by Vijay Sharma, based in Chamba. So I have translations of all of those. They're all summaries of the scenes. Some of them with the borders that are unfinished have little Takri notations that basically just note what's supposed to be there. Like there's supposed to be a woman, and this is supposed to be Kaikei, and this is mantra. So it's just it's like little notes as to the artist, what is supposed to be in those pictures. And the yellow is definitely Indian yellow. There's a copious amount of Indian yellow, also known as Pahari, that in very generous quantities. Although the ones from Mandi with the Mandyali Takri, it's also Indian yellow. It's a paler version. It's as though it's been watered down. Maybe they just were stretching it over, because that group has 120 paintings in that group, whereas let's see, the one where all the gold is finished and everything, and the yellow is so thick and rich, there are only 25 in that style. So they may have used, if each workshop got the same amount of money, some may have stretched it over more folios, and others, lavished more gold and peori on each painting. And apparently, so this is something I learned quite recently from Manish Sharma, who's from an artist family, and they've been doing a lot of research on Indian yellow. And there's a team in Queens, actually, a research team of conservation scientists in Canada working on Indian yellow and refabricating it. So I guess in the early 20th century, the British outlawed the production of Indian yellow, saying that it's harmful to cows to be eating mango leaves. So Indian yellow is made from the urine of cows fed only with mango leaves, and then for several weeks, and then the urine is collected and all the water is evaporated off, and the powder is mixed with gum arabic to create little balls of pigment that you then use a water-based paint, water and a brush to as a pigment. And but actually, what he learned is that every year, naturally, at the end of summer, the end of the hot season, right before the monsoon, cows naturally eat mango leaves. Almost every other plant is dried up, grass is all dead. And so, but the mango trees flourish at the end of the hot season. And so naturally, so you can only gather this urine over about the space of 1 week, as it's been just several weeks of eating basically only mango leaves right before the monsoon. So it's a very seasonal kind of harvest for the right cow urine to make peori. And also, it does seem that these paintings use a very wide range of pigments. So the reason why these Pahari Rajas became quite wealthy during the 16th and 17th century is that trade routes had shifted, probably as a result of a little ice age that took place in the 15th century, where trans-Himalayan trade routes that used to run from Ladakh through Zanskar and the high Himalayas, a lot of those passes became blocked because of a little ice age, they called it, when for about 100 years temperatures stayed low. And so the trade routes shifted to the south through these Pahari kingdoms. And so they were able to exact greater taxes and also to have access to a great number of materials that would be coming from Afghanistan and Central Asia and the plains of India. And so there are a great wide range of colors. But each workshop had its own recipes. Apparently, the women are the ones who would grind the pigments and have the recipes for making each pigment. And so each family have their own particular pigment compositions. And so that's another way, if we didn't had enough of a data set to do technical analysis, that we could identify which paintings were made at which workshops.
That's fascinating. I think the story of the cows and the mango leaves is new for us. But I can see that we just have a few minutes to go, so I'm going to end with a final question, which is about the construction of this exhibition and the fact that it involves reuniting individual folios. And so when you did this, did the sequence that you created change your interpretation of the individual works, and in what way? Or did your understanding of the individual images impact or kind of facilitate the way in which you sequenced them? If you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's sometimes very difficult to get them in the correct sequence because some of the paintings are so general, just a priest talking to a king. It could be from 10 different parts of the Ramayana. So it's a little bit hard. And also, it's not as though the painting styles are necessarily clustered in one narrative sequence following Valmiki. Instead, it seems like uh, certain environments or types of places like forest scenes are made by the same art group of artists, palace scenes by another group of artists. So you can see it's a very efficient system where you get one artist kind of already set up with the right colors and accustomed to making architectural scenes, and you just do those one after the other, and then you give it to somebody else and they put in the figures, and so it really is a a, a system of multiple makers. So it's just because they're two paintings that look alike by the same hand, very obviously, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily sequential. So you have to be careful. And then on the backs of all of these paintings, there are inventory numbers that give the name of the khanda and then gives a number. So I did go through and put everything, as many as I could see, put them in numerical order, but that doesn't necessarily always follow the narrative order of Valmiki. And instead, it seems to follow the order of the submission of the artist. So they might actually be recording the numbers of paintings turned in by the artists, and then they get paid, and then you get a next batch, and so forth. I don't know. It's still a little mysterious, but they're not reliable in terms of putting the whole series in narrative order. So what you really just have to do is read Valmiki, have all the paintings, and look for little details and visual clues about which ones go in which order. And we're still, every time I go through it, I still shift things around a little bit. And so this is why I'm so grateful to MAP for allowing their digital platform of in part in the Rebound project to be making these public digitally so that we can still move them, because I feel like if we were to publish a book, it would be outdated the next day. Especially also we keep finding new folios and so forth. So it's great that we'll be working on this digital publication. But once you do put them in order of Valmiki's Ramayana, it is extraordinary what emerges. And for one thing, it seems like there was this performative quality, so that probably they weren't just turned page by page like a book. It seems like a whole section would be laid out, and then maybe somebody would recite the Ramayana, and because they seem to move along, but then sometimes switch back, like certain action will be happening here, and then meanwhile this is going on, and then Valmiki will be talking about what Rama and Lakshmana are thinking on the battlefield. And then meanwhile, Sita is here and she's doing this in the Ashoka Grove. And so they have a big emphasis on Sita and the Ashoka Grove, and then a bunch of scenes with Rama and Lakshmana, but then it kind of switches back to what Sita is thinking about. So it's it does kind of flow across folios, and so it reminds me of the way that Pahari artists would be working in murals, where multiple scenes can happen in one visual location, multiple narrative scenes in one place. And then also this kind of idea of moving along a frieze, almost like, one of these long pattas on cloth that would move around with bars. But in this format of being on small pieces of paper. And the other thing that is very exciting when we put the paintings back in order is that we see certain emphases. So we see the emphasis of how many paintings are dedicated to a certain scene that might not seem to us as being so important. um, and then we see a certain kind of rhythmic lulling of similarity of like the same color background over and over, and then a sudden shift where it'll be something completely different. And that again it shows a kind of emphasis of a climactic moment or a turn in mood or a peak in the action. And again, it could be an element that would not necessarily be obvious as a high point in the scene. So we do get these kind of long passages of different kinds of scenes. And so it has this kind of musical quality, like, a sonata that moves at a different pace for a series. And there's a big stop and a big change. And then it goes into another direction, or it picks up where it left off before. And oftentimes, right before a big change, there's this kind of penultimate, like discordant scene, and then something really glorious. So it really does create a special experience to view them in series.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I wish we had more time to talk about these folios in depth, but on behalf of MAP, I want to thank you for joining us this evening, Dr. Mace, and sharing your research with us and also taking us through the exhibition. It closes this weekend, so very happy to have had this glimpse into it, especially for our audiences that are based here and haven't had the chance to see it in person. I also want to thank the audience for being here today, and I want to acknowledge again sign language interpreters Saurabh and Pallavi from the Association for Sign Language Interpreters in India. And thank you very much again, Dr. Mace, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you for joining tonight.